This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream house or ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies to same item, current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
There, then you deserve to be smacked in the mouth. But that's inculcated into everyone that goes into a Japanese dojo.
Welcome to the Anxious Black Belt, the podcast focusing on karate, mental health, and everything in between. Today, we got the Sensei Vince Morris with us, upon recommendation of my good friend Don came, and we're gonna be learning about the Kissaki-Kai method. How are you, Sensei?
It's nice to meet you at last. I've seen some of your stuff on Facebook, and Don says you're okay. So if Don says you're okay, I guess I have to believe him.
I have to congratulate you on the choice of your students. I really like Don. We seems to be going okay as friends, as martial artists.
Yeah.
We do a lot of seminars together, and his skills are fantastic. And that was my introductions to Kissaki-Kai.
Well, Don has been a student of mine for say 25 years. When I was based in Nottingham, he used to come up regularly to our training sessions there, and I used to go down to Haywards Heath and do seminars down there for Don. He's a really nice person, and very knowledgeable. His style of Kissaki-Kai is not exactly the same as mine. The knowledge base is the same, and the basis of the rules of combat are the same, but Don goes in a slightly different direction, which I think is perfectly fine. I don't ever want people to try and be copycats of me. I could design a better me if that was going to be the case. But Kissaki-Kai is never going to be for everybody. It's very demanding if you're really committed to it. The thing is, some of my students have been with me, like Don, for more than 20 years, and they've evolved with Kissaki-Kai, and they've evolved with me. I still smile when I see videos that I put out 20 years ago. People are still looking at it. I'm still getting people writing to me saying, wow, this has just opened my eyes. And I'm thinking, yeah, but that was then. You should see what we're doing now. I just read a comment on Facebook today about somebody that just seen one of my early videos. Said it just made the nonsense that they were being taught by regular Shotokan senseis so apparent and so obvious. But we've moved on since then. We to begin with, it was a bit of a difficult time for me because most of my teachers were Japanese. And essentially, Asana was my main teacher. And I moved up to Nottingham when I was, I don't know, 20 maybe. I started training in judo in Portsmouth with Dennis Penfold, who was the European silver medalist lightweight. And we used to be visited regularly by members of the Japanese fleet, rather. And they had some interesting techniques. They would put you on the ground in Kissaki-Kai scarf hold and put their armpits over your face. And as they don't seem to have washed their gi since they left Japan, you gave up immediately. You just tapped out. That was just impossible. But then I went to, I went to the local Chichester High School when I was 10, before the 11 plus. Well, I mean, I had to wait, but I passed it when I was 10 to get to the grammar school. I'm not sure if anybody's interested in this, but we've got to find some sort of way to get into this. And I started training when I was 10 in judo. And then when I was 15, I was problematic at school. They really asked me to leave, and I was happy to go. I was difficult. I was a sort of strange person. My interests were reading. In fact, I used to play truant from school and simply go to the local library and sit in the library all day long and read books every day. And it got to the stage where they realized that they and I were better apart. So I packed my suitcases and got my guitar and caught the train to London. And tried to find Charlie Mack. Now, Charlie Mack, I don't know if anybody knows his name anymore, but a phenomenal gentleman. I went to him to try and continue my judo practice. I actually tracked him down, and when I met him, he said, "Well, I don't teach judo anymore." Oh, really? That's me, a suitcase, guitar, dogi, and nowhere I want to train with. He said because he injured his knee in a championship, red and white, in the Kodokan before he came home. But he had started a karate school because he was actually the first Westerner to get judo and karate black belt in Japan. And he also was the only Westerner to have thrown Anton Heesink, the Dutch giant, in judo. He was but Charlie was an amazing doer man. And so I thought, well, okay, give it a try. And within 6 months, I was heading up his team facing, oh dear, at Crystal Palace in the British Championships. 6 months. And my first and last opponent, guess who? Terry O'Neill. The sound his foot made when it hit me echoed all the way around Crystal Palace, and everyone went, "He's killed him." He hadn't killed me, but it was the start of a beautiful friendship. But anyway, after that, I decided that although I'd left school when I was 15, I had no qualifications at all. I finagled my way into the University of Nottingham to read English and aligned subjects, and to try and find Asano's dojo, which I did eventually. And so that was the start of my meeting with Asano. And the first meeting with Sensei Asano was memorable too, because he kicked me in the head so hard, I woke up in the dressing rooms with my head under the cold water tap, and I couldn't see out of my left eye for a week. Couldn't even open it with both hands. Apparently he took a dislike to Charlie Mack's badge on my gi. So,
okay.
Oh, comedy making now. Okay, bang. Okay, thank you. Arigato. And there was the start of a love-hate relationship that lasted a long, long time. But to give Asano Sensei his due, I'd never met a tougher fighter in my life. Never met a tougher Japanese in my life. And I trained with so many of them. Ochi, Nagai, Kanazawa, obviously. And even the Mr. Inoue used to invite me to his black belt sessions, and I was only a brown belt. I quite liked Inoue Sensei too, but I never met anyone quite like Asano. He used to put so much pressure on people just by coming into the dojo that many a time I'd be up in the changing room getting ready for the session, and you'd hear Sensei's footsteps coming along the carpet, and then a few of the less intrepid people changing with me would jump into the toilets, the lavatories, to wait for Asano to get out, and then they'd go home. I even see them in the car park when Asano's car would come in, they'd duck down and then they'd, oh, fuck it. Excuse the language, but it was, he was, the people that he put pressure on you, let's put it that way. And he was that good that he could put pressure on you without even thinking about it. So I learned so much from him. I owe my... He made me become tenacious and never give in. He made me. I mean, there was a time when he knocked me down on the floor so many times. And this was every Friday night, by the way. This wasn't just a one-off. This was every Friday night. The other members of the higher grades that were there sitting in Moxo or watching, they wouldn't look anymore. They'd just turn and look away out of, I don't know, they didn't want to see what he was doing to me. But it even got to the stage where on one evening I chose, it's in one of my first books anyway, so I can talk about it. It sounds a bit inane, really, but I chose to live or die because I was an asthmatic since childhood. So any hard exercise made it eventually impossible for me to breathe because the air didn't get down into the lungs. So I was like drowning in air. And he'd keep me out. He fought other people for a certain time, but he always kept me out longer and longer and longer. And one time he knocked me down again, and I just lay on the floor looking at his feet. And I thought, I could just give up now. This has gone on long enough. But then I thought, well, if I do, he's won. And I thought, no, if I get up, I might die because I couldn't breathe. I mean, it's really trying to drag air into my lungs and summon up the strength to get up and have another rush at him. But I thought, well, you know what? If he kills me, I'll have won because he'll have to explain my body to the police. How's he going to do that? How asinine is that? How stupid is that? But that's the stage that he pushed you to in building your spirit, that you would not give in. And that's helped me throughout all my life, especially in this last few years when I've had all various illnesses, back operations that have gone wrong. So I had to go back in and have them done again. And then I got sepsis and I didn't think I was going to make it out of that. Couldn't get off the bed. I couldn't move. And then trying to walk. Okay. And then finally after that, Dad had to have another hip put in. So it's been a bugger. But you know what? Ask me how many times I thought I'm going to give in. No. I've just come back from training this morning, an hour, hard, heavy weights. I'm lifting more weights than I was before because I need to get back my stamina, my mobility. I've got so many things to teach my students. And I've never stopped researching. I find a delight in suddenly seeing, oh, yes, that's what that's for. And then testing it to destruction. Luckily, I've got my assistant, the European chief instructor also has moved to this area of France. So we see each other 3-4 times a week. We chat about everything, but every time we also look at techniques on the YouTube and whatever. Bunkai masters, yeah. Japanese influenced senseis, yeah. You've never seen such bullshit in your life. On the face of it, it looks good. You think, and I say to Keith, can we do that? Can you really escape from that lock by doing this? Can you get out of that chokehold by doing that? Well, guess what? We just get up, and in my office, we do it. And I've got a dojo at home here. I've got my own home dojo. And we try it. And the last time we tried an escape from a stranglehold that they were pushing on Facebook, poor Guy, I got him in a chokehold, and he's, all right, now get out of it. And it was all quiet, and I let go of him, and he fell over on the floor, knocked the table over, knocked the chair over, and like, no, that doesn't bloody work. See, it's so easy. Here's the problem, and I'm still bugger. What happened there?
I love it. It's okay. It's okay. You're on.
Okay, got it. Yeah. You must experience this yourself and be aware of the problem. You know, I just come back from Frankfurt. We did a really good 2-day seminar, and there were people there from all over the place. And the problem is, my students rush out to be my uke when I'm trying to demonstrate technique, and I don't. Because they say to me, when they're my uke, they feel what's supposed to happen. But here's a problem. If they try to help you, it doesn't work, because any fool can see they're not really trying to hit you. Well, they know now that I insult them or hit them a little. No, I don't hit them. I pinch them or upset them. So they've got to try to hit me, because, I mean, I look at these Japanese influence. Are you ready? Yoi. Yeah, of course you're ready. You've got your hands in your pockets, more or less. What's the point of your hands down there? If you're caught in the street with your hands down there, then you deserve to be smacked in the mouth. But that's inculcated into every ready. It's not ready, it's unready. And techniques like hikite, you cannot make long-term Shotokan people stop doing it. They can't. It's so far in them that they're doing that, when it's perfectly useless. It should be here. Whatever you're doing with this hand, it doesn't matter. This hand's there to go. We have the rules of combat. You might have heard of our rules of combat. In a fight, hands only do 2 things: protect you, hurt the enemy. If they're ever in a position like this, doing bugger all, chop it off, sell it. It's no good to you. It's not protecting you. It's not hurting the enemy. And yet, if you look, I mean, I thought, okay, here's Yahara, somebody teaching Manjigema. Let's see what he does. Yelenbarai. Yes. And this one? Oh, we don't talk about that. It's just ready. Ready for what? Typical Japanese answer. I don't blame them anymore, because from the research that I've done over the years, I know exactly why they don't know what they're doing. What I do object is the fact that try and push it onto believing, respectful students that lap it up and think that they're being told the truth. They're not being told the truth. And when I used to ask Asano about things like that, he just smacked me on the head. Oh, no, more training there. Yeah, fuck that, more training. But why? Why am I doing that? Because I know the answers now. Why am I doing these? It's not to stop somebody kicking you. Yeah, fine, do that and let them punch you in the face because it was a fake kick. Yeah, that sounds great to me. It's because when Master Funakoshi took Okinawan karate into Japan, he was sponsored by Jigoro Kano Sensei, who was changing jiu-jitsu into judo. Now, one thing you don't do when you're reliant on a well-known sponsor is piss him off by teaching all the same things he's teaching.
Yeah.
Well, so what did he do? Funakoshi took out the major throws. He took out the ground fighting. He took out the joint twisting and locking. He took out, well, he kept a bit of the atemi, the striking points, vital points, but not many. He took out the choking. He took out all those techniques that were the province of the new judo. Judo in return took out, well, they didn't take it out, still there, but they don't teach it so much anymore, Goshin no Jitsu, which is their self-defense judo kata, which already at that time had defenses against knife attacks, baton attacks, even firearm attacks, which you don't know. Most judo people don't know that. Well, we never seen that. Of course you won't, because that would be treading on Funakoshi's toes. So we keep it there for classical demonstrations once every 5 years or so, but we don't practice it. We don't train you in it. It's not our problem. Judo doesn't do that. Judo's now a sport, as is karate, if it's done a la Japanese Shotokan and alike methods. Because, as I say, people say, well, we know that we've seen in the books, for example, we have techniques that look like that, attacking the arms in the kata. Mm-hmm. We don't teach that. No. And you see techniques like this, which is jujitsu, cross strangle, but you can't do that. It's supposed to be nothing. It's just there for start a kata with or something. Why aren't they there? Well, ask yourself the simple question: in any competition you've been in, how many points would you score for choking someone unconscious?
Disqualification.
Yeah, you'd be out. It's not. And so, and please don't get me wrong, I have great admiration for people that do sports, karate and kumite. And I mean, I was in Asano's A team for years. And we won the championships a couple of occasions and came second. And so I loved fighting, but I knew it was phony. And I thought one of the first things Asano said to me was stop sweeping people and stop throwing people, because I was like, I was fresh from judo. And then, of course, he made a mockery of it, because one of his best techniques was actually barai leg sweep. I mean, he's always putting people on their ass from that. But apparently that was okay. But the evolution of karate from Okinawa to Japan meant very simply that small groups were now no good. You needed a large group to pay for this new sport, this new venture. So you didn't have the direct contact as you would have between the sensei and the 5 or 6 or 10 students in his backyard back in Okinawa. And once you're faced with a bunch of 30, 40, 50, 100 students, you've got to formalize things, because the guy at the back can't see what you're doing. So you miss the intricacies of a technique and you get the major outward expression of a technique. But that's okay, because one of Funakoshi's principal changes was a philosophical one. He changed the combat self-defense effective Okinawan training into a moral sport, a moral for self-advancement, of transcending the ego, where the form was placed as much more important than the function. Well, when that happens, nobody cared what the bunkai was. Why would they? They're not being tested on it. They're not being trained on it. They're not being taught it. And so it vanished. And what a kata looks like, and that's still today, nobody's judged when they're in a competition of a kata, and how effective is it, what he's doing, because you can't see what he's doing. It's all formalized techniques, and now it's all bang, bang, focus. Yeah, but why? What? And then you get things like focus for 10 minutes. The audience got it yet? You think they're ready for me now? Yeah, okay, I'll move on. And how loud can I scream?
Yeah, that is very annoying with the screaming, you have to admit.
Yeah. But in the end, this is one of the reasons why Kissaki-Kai was originated 25 years ago. Well, at first, Asano threw me out of the dojo, but that's another story. I wasn't the only one. And then Aidan Trimble asked me to help him establish the Federation of Shotokan Karate. And I love Aidan to death. He's one of the finest karateka I've ever known. So talented. But what he was doing attracted all the sports people and what I was doing and didn't. So in the end, we amicably went our various ways. But Aidan's one of the nicest guys and one of the most technically proficient karateka I've ever known. But okay, so I had so many students that would come and train with me. And for example, when a sensei wasn't in the dojo, he'd ask somebody, quite often me, to take the class for him. Or if he couldn't go to a certain venue to teach people, would I go? I got my petrol fare paid, £4, lovely, fantastic. Booked my summer holidays on that. But students would say, but this is different. And, but it's the same techniques from the outside, but what you're doing with them is different. Yeah. So eventually I had a lot of students say, well, can you teach us? And here's something I'd learned. As much as I admire people, Bill Wallace, obviously Aidan, and Terry O'Neill and people like that, fantastic. You always think of the kicks, don't you? You do. I mean, but ask yourself how many Okinawans used to do those kicks? Not one. Not one. Now and then say, well, that's because those kicks are no good for self-defense. That's bullshit too. That's normally said by people that can't do them. If you can do them, they work bloody well. The problem is not many people can do them as well as those people I've just mentioned. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can, go for it. But a lot of students were saying to me, but we spend hours on the course trying to get your knee up here and then you kick that way and then that way and that one. But all I do is fall over. And after the age of about 40, I can't do it anyway. So am I supposed to stop training? Mm-hmm. Well, nice to say, but you don't need to do it. You're going to kick them in the head, not put them on the ground first. Then you take your time. But people used to like the fact that also I was teaching, I started the International Institute for Kyushu Jitsu Research. And I spent years, here's the other thing a lot of people don't realize. At the time, I was teaching Anglo-Saxon courses for my professor in the university. And then I started a PhD translating Old Norse sagas.
Interesting.
I've always been a bit intellectual, so I hit it well. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
No, yeah, that's true. But people. Thing is, I was really in a good position to research into the origins of the martial arts. Of course, I started to teach myself Japanese. I can say hello. Can I have another beer and where are the toilets and things like that. Not much help translating manuscripts. But luckily, the diet in Japan, they have stores of all these old manuscripts of Makimono and then you have the techniques from the Bubishi to look at, and you've got all these various charts and things. But I spent literally years testing things, what works and what doesn't. I mean, one of my students at the time was a doctor, so we used to wire up other students to heart monitor machines and things like that. And I practiced hitting them nicely, gently, and a cup of tea afterwards. But just to see which was effective and which wasn't. And then we threw out the bullshit and got down to nitty gritty, what does work. I mean, Chin Na, a lot of people don't know much about Chin Na, the ripping, the tearing, the bending, the manipulation, the kensetsu was, if you like, of original karate. So went into that in a big way. And in the end, my training helped me to get to the bottom of what really was happening in karate, in what was so-called bunkai. And then I realized the Japanese, we used to have them come straight from the JKA to come and spend time with Asano, junior instructors, Jake fourth dans, so on. They hadn't got a clue. And if they were asked about, well, here's the thing. When Asano did the first video of 15 katas, after he finished the katas, which was an amazing feat on its own, he just turned to me and to one of the other guys and said, okay, you do the bunkai. What does that tell you? Well, in the JKA, they used to, it's no good reverse engineering something if you don't understand the principles. Somebody hands you a Glock, looks like a hammer. And if you've never seen a Glock fired, you can use it as a bloody good hammer, but it's not what it was made for. If you don't understand, if you don't take it apart and say, oh, well, that's the function of that. And you can use it as a hammer. But the Japanese didn't do that. And why would they? Because the diktat was how it looks is more important than what it does. Form over function. And so not many people that wanted to get into the Japanese team or wanted to be the top in their dojo or wanted to be sent out as junior instructors all the way around the world for this new exciting combat sport would spend much time on developing their knowledge of what it was originally for. Why would they? They'd never need it. And so now you have the nonsense of, if it looks good, it must work. Well, that's bullshit. And it comes back to my original point of ukis. If you don't have protective gear on and put a helmet on and your uki does the same, oh, well, actually, we don't really go that far. I mean, the uki wears it, I don't, and gi doesn't. But if you don't try to hit me, you won't get the right reaction from me. And I take a chance. Sometimes I stand there and say, go on, hit me. And they go, dang, and they don't. Well, I knew you wouldn't. So now you've got to try to hit me. And until they act as if it were the street, bunkai is of no good to anybody, especially when you realize that most of the techniques that are taught, I'm sorry if I'm being a bit dictatorial here, but if you're taught bunkai by a strongly Japanese influenced sensei, he will normally teach you bunkai which works against another Japanese orientated fighter. I don't know anyone in the street that does oizukis. I know people that do, you know, I mean, how many? Nowadays, a few might, but if your sensei has only developed his bunkai against people that also do karate the way he does it, it is not ever going to work. Also, how long would the sensei want his student to be in the dojo if every time a sensei picked him to do some bunkai demonstration and he got smacked in the mouth? Well, I mean, you can. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, Les.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. It's about you know, you sharing your knowledge. But the question what I wanted to ask, you mentioned about the Funakoshi dropping the techniques, and I think you are spot on with this one. I totally agree with that. That, you know, you go into somebody who's doing a throws, you don't step on their toes. But recently, I've seen a few videos from Okinawan masters. In the same thing happens. Is a very traditional bunkai that is not making much of a sense. Do you think that spread it backwards from Japan because the Okinawan scene, oh, this is very popular, we have to go that way?
Well, I had a long talk with my old friend that we've lost him now, Chuck Merriman. Yeah. And he was a mine of knowledge. I asked him, why is it that it seems that certain Japanese senseis now look more, sorry, Okinawan senseis look more like the Japanese than they used to? And he'd say, well, because just as in Japan, the sport form, the competition, remember, they never had competitions. They used to have like original fights in the sort of grappling tegumi style things, but there was never set competitions. Obviously, what happens when senseis left the dojo, people would say, well, let's just have a go at this. But the spread of Japanese influence karate is absolutely worldwide. And it did spread back to Okinawa and has spread back to Okinawa. There are a few groups which still maintain the old ways, but then they can't help but be influenced by what's happening, because if you have so many senses in Okinawa living on the breadline, they don't make money out of it. They get, a lot of them are old now, and you want a certificate, you can get a certificate, but what are the students teaching and what are they learning? And a lot of it is more and more like sport influenced karate, can I put it that way? And okay, I understand that too, but it's a sad loss. But there are some stalwarts that still keep the old ways. But the problem is when they allowed Funakoshi to go to Japan as the ambassador for karate, it wasn't because he was the best sensei. It was the fact that he could speak the language better, and he was an educationalist, and he was an intellectual. And he was, I mean, for example, well as I do, that Choki Motobu was already in Japan and really didn't have a following because he used to piss people off by throwing them around a lot and beating them up and being his lovely self, which I admire that too. I mean, it's fine. And when he actually met Funakoshi, there was very bad blood, and apparently he tossed Funakoshi around a few times, and that it all developed from that article in the King magazine of this Russian boxer that was defeated by an elderly karate master from the audience. Well, that was Motobu, but King magazine didn't know what Motobu looked like. So what did they do? They drew pictures of Funakoshi. That's going to do you some good, isn't it? I mean, that's going to make Motobu love him. Anyway, but you're right. Things have changed, and luckily, I mean, when I first started talking about bunkai and its applications, people used to say, well, I mean, I remember the headlines of a certain magazine that had me on it. It was Vince Morris, pioneer or pirate. I didn't know what I was doing. But you see, then I'd also started passing this knowledge on in law enforcement training and stuff like that. And I was for 12 years teaching the trainers at the academy in Belgium. We know it works because we used to get feedback from the officers, and they also tested what I was doing up against a team of Krav Maga instructors from Holland who were teaching law enforcement, and they gave a day of letting them do their stuff and then mine. Well, in the end, the police academy rewrote the training manual, including the Kissaki techniques, and it's still there to this day. And I have never, ever taught people something that doesn't work. If it doesn't work for them, it's because they haven't done it properly, or they haven't trained it properly, or they've misunderstood it. Because when I'm teaching my officers to go out and face people on the street, I'm damn certain I'm not going to send them out to get hurt or potentially even killed. And the feedback I've had from them is that it works. I mean, because you wouldn't believe the depths we went to test all this stuff out. And so when I say this technique works, I mean, the other side of that coin is when somebody tells me they've got a bunkai, an application, a defense technique that works, I just say, well, do it on me. Okay, try me. And that's not to be egotistical or big-headed, but how else am I going to know whether it's going to work? And so mostly they don't. But that's another story. I sound coming across really egotistically. I'm not. I try to be as honest as I can, and I let common sense should and just trying it should tell you. My question to people after a seminar or during a seminar is, look, half of you've never met me before, and you're looking to begin with as if, well, I can't see that, but where are all my attackers ending up? Every one of them is on the ground. They have to be, because it's another rule of combat in Kissaki-Kai. All attackers must end up on the ground. They must, otherwise you've not done your job properly. Plus the fact that in teaching law enforcement, we also devised a new handcuffing lockdown, which they all use now, because it's not over until the enemy's down. So all this stuff, blah, 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 step back, let's have it again. Blah, blah. No. It's only finished when the fat man, well, it didn't have to be the fat man, when the attack is on the ground. So the rules of combat have been, I think, hugely informative to most people. Because simply if you're doing something wrong, you can just open the book and there's a page, have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done this? Have you done the other? And for example, simple things like we've changed Shotokan's Ippon Kumite and Gohon Kumite, 5-step Kumite, because it was always a nonsense. And we've now adapted it into being effective. It's as simple as that. Every technique ends up with the enemy on the ground. And we've included in it now not just punching techniques, but grabbing techniques, choking techniques, attacks from behind, kicking techniques. And every time it's done, the enemies have got to be on the ground. Otherwise, it doesn't count. And you're tested in this. You have to do it. And it's been a game changer, really. I just wish I were 20 years younger, because I'd have that much more time to spread Kissaki. I mean, I'm soon going to be 81, which is, most people have had their slippers on and feet up for years, but somebody's stolen my slippers. So what am I going to do? But
did you face a lot of backlash when you came up with as one of the first with the applications that actually work, because you kind of threatened the Japanese dominance with your nonsense?
I've got a nice newspaper article. I don't even know who wrote it, but when I was a sixth Dan, this article said Vince Morris hated by the Japanese, because all of a sudden people can see that what he's doing is working and what they're doing isn't. And yeah, there's a lot of animosity, but some of the new Japanese, no, they're more receptive. But the dyed-in-the-wool JKA churned out Senseis, all ex-Japan champions and blah, blah, blah. Most of them, it is what hurts me so much. Kanazawa, for example, fantastic technique, but bullshit at bunkai. I mean, I've even got videos of him teaching here from the kata. And it's against somebody with a katana. All very well and good if you want your hands cut to pieces, but if you slow it down and look at it frame by, the uki's actually holding the katana by the blade and hitting him with the hilt. What's that about? And that's Kanazawa. Why is he doing such bullshit? Well, I went to teach in his Chinese dojo 2 or 3 times, and that was a bit embarrassing because I couldn't correct the old 50, 60, 70-year-olds because of the Chinese idea of face. So when I was trying to correct them, I'd have to correct the guy next to them, the younger student, as if he'd been doing it wrong. But, so that, and doing it slowly. So, yeah, can you see what I'm doing? Yeah. But not going directly up to them and teaching them to make them lose face. But the outcome of that was their club secretary and about 4 or 5 others left him and joined Kissaki-Kai. But that didn't make him a great friend of mine, did it? But what can I tell you? Yeah, so in the main, the younger Japanese and the younger ones today, but I see some of the young ones still a great technique and fit and sharp and wrong in what they're teaching. But on the other hand, I've seen an awful lot of people teaching what I know were my techniques. Yeah. And I know that. I see them on Facebook. Where do I ever seen that before? And invariably they forget something. So I know they haven't quite understood the rules of combat to go with it. But do I mind? No. When I put things out, it's up to people what they do with it. I mean, I've had a few people blatantly rip off what I do and even publish photos that they've posed exactly in my poses to make a name for themselves. Do I like that? No. I won't tell you what I think of them. But all they need have done was say, hats off to Vince or a nod to Vince. I don't care, but just good manners, just
Yeah,
to be honest.
that's the problem in karate. I see that a lot, and I'm good friends with quite a few, like Ian Abernathy, Christian Vedevart, Don, and I see people teaching stuff is clearly their stuff and never mention stuff. Whatever I teach is usually stolen from people, so I see it, I adapt it, I change it to
Well,
my
of
abilities. But
course it is. What's the point
yeah,
of us putting stuff out if people don't use it? I mean, what is the
mm,
point of that? I mean, I've seen what you do. I've recognized some bits and pieces, and I think, well, it's getting around. Good for him. But you're not pushing yourself as, the master. Well, I mean, perhaps not wrong because you're good. But
thank you.
but you're not trying to wear other people's clothes. For years, when I was I mean, I left school and joined a rock band when I was 15, and I had lived in France, with the US troops and all kinds of. And I sounded and still do, if I'm not careful, an awful lot like Elvis. And at the time, you just have to go to my Facebook or something. I'll watch some of my. There's a lot of videos of me and my band and things like that. But I was asked by entrepreneurs and managers, Vince, what you sound like hell. I couldn't help it. I didn't try to. The range of my voice was the same. And if I put an accent on, which it had to see can't sing rock and roll with an English accent, it had to be. But it was remarkably like poor Elvis. But would I put the rhinestone suit on? Would I become an Elvis impersonator? No, I bloody wouldn't. I can sing the songs. Even today on one of my CDs that I've recently released, a bit of a plug there. I do, by the way, I used to have a recording studio of my own too, so that was pretty cool. I released an Elvis song exactly as Elvis would have done it, and it sounds good. And then I did my version, which was a different beat, different rhythm, different sound, same song, but different, because I don't want to wear somebody else's clothes. And it's the same in karate. I couldn't be Aiden. I'd love to have his technique. I couldn't do it. My legs are about 6 inches shorter than his. He's deformed. We all know that. We don't talk about it. But I was in a nightclub in the West End in London after I finished the show, disheveled and covered in sweat and dripping. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. The band's packing up. The nightclub owner came up to me and he said, well, he looked me up and down. He said, Vince, they might not like you, but they can't ignore you. And I thought, well, I'll take that. Because I didn't like the buggers trying to eat their food when I was singing. So anyway, but I don't
um,
know.
y-
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier that training with your sensei build your resilience. You learn not to give up. What the impact of karate and martial arts was for your mental health? Do you think it was positive or negative or?
Well, at the time, it was not positive at all. Let me give you a reason. I mentioned earlier that I had to fight Asano every Friday night. I couldn't
Mhm.
miss it. So on the Wednesday beforehand, around about, I'd start to think, oh, Friday's coming. And then Thursday, Friday's coming. And it would be in my mind, it'd be like a black cloud in my mind thinking, well, Vince, are you going to go? Are you not going to go? You can always just miss it. You can say you've got a meeting or but in the end, I learned to say, to hell with it. Just do it. And I survived eventually. But it was real pressure. And I mean, people, people going in for championships and things like that. There's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of nerves. And I don't suppose, nobody ever said to me, Vince, this is how you deal with it. You would just talk, deal with it, get on with it. And of course, my research into the books I was writing about the samurai ethic, it always beats me how they could quite happily commit seppuku in the face of, kill themselves because to save the family's name or something. I thought, what sort of mindset does that? So then I went into looking at how the mind affects daily life, or in particularly karate, and I put out this video, the martial mind, and it's I actually explain. I taught a sort of a training where one person stands in the middle, and there's a group of people around that they attack. And when the attack's been going for a minute or two, another one comes in, and then another one comes. And then somebody said to me, well, how do you expect them to win? And I said, well, I'm not telling them this, but I don't expect them to win. What I expect them to do is to survive or die. That's the mindset that you want. So I'm not teaching them techniques to win a fight against 6 people. I'm teaching them, hopefully, mental strength to just do what is necessary. And that's what's got me through so much physical, mental anguish. I've had a lot of things I can't talk about, but we take this Galaxy Quest saying and put it on the back of our T-shirts, never give up, never surrender, because it's the truest phrase that there is as far as Kissaki is concerned. And mental strength doesn't mean you don't cry. It doesn't mean you don't feel weak. It doesn't mean to say you shouldn't talk to others about it. You should do. You should sometimes seek professional help if it's really affecting your life so much. But within us, I found there is a courage that once you stop looking for certain answers, like how am I going to beat the 6th man in this group? Just forget that. Just do what's necessary now to survive what's happening now. Just get on with now. And it's a bit like the Zen thing, live in the moment. And that's true too. I never found that much use to me, meditation and Zen. Sano sent me to train with Kinetsuka, the Aikido master and Zen teacher, and I didn't find it much help to me. I used to get angry when they hit me with that big stick. I don't need that. But to be truthful, so much is won in life and in the martial arts, and especially in real danger, depending upon the tenacity in your soul and the courage in your soul and the mindset. What I try to teach the cops, and I used to teach all kinds of people. The White House security advisor had me teaching people, and he actually called me the master that teaches the professionals. Well, I thought that's very nice. But at the end of the day, everyone's different. Everyone needs some reality that they can hang on to. You can't live in a dream world. You can't be Bruce Lee. I couldn't be Elvis. I had to be the best I could be. And if you're doing any martial art or anything, you've only got to be the best you can be. Don't try to wear other people's clothes, and understand that shit happens. It really does. The nicest, finest most beautiful day, and your dog gets run over, you know, or suddenly someone you know has got cancer, or maybe you've. I mean, look, I went through so much this last few years, but my ambition was to get back to training and teaching, and the positive was there always, not just a little bit out of my grasp, but my determination to reach it kept me going. Now, I'm not saying that's the same for everyone, because I wouldn't be so arrogant as to say that, but whatever you do, if you stop demanding of yourself things you can't do, if you can't ask your body for something it's impossible for it to give, if you just accept who you are and work within your limits, but try to expand your limits a bit by bit, step by step, step by step, you can come through it. But to have some sort of objective is really fairly necessary. If you just blithely sit back and give yourself into waves of depression, you'll then turn to something like drugs, or you'll turn to alcohol, or you'll turn to whatever, I don't know. But be aware before you even start, that's not going to work. It'll simply make you so pissed off that you actually added all that shit to what's already troubling you. You just have to sit back, wipe the mind of expectations, and say, what am I doing today? Let me just deal with today, step by step. Anyway, that's life according to Vince.
That's a good title for a podcast.
Yeah, right. I was once the chairman of the Martial Arts Commission in Britain, in England. And I had thought of calling my next book Thoughts of Chairman Vince, but it's been lost on people now. There got so much to do.
In terms of, so I spoke to Hanshi Mark House, and he asked me an interesting question. So I'm asking most of my guests that one. If you take all your principles, rules, and the kind of mindset of your dojo or your style, and boil it to the minimal amount of words, what that would be. For mine is strong and caring, and we try to portray that in our dojo so everybody knows what we're about. What would be yours?
Well, if you want me to be brutally honest, the rules of combat can't be put into one sentence. It's not possible. You've got to read the rules and understand them, because different rules apply in different situations. But I would go, in my rule of life is Shakespeare, to thine own self be true, then it shall follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. And that encompasses it all to me. It's not a martial ethic, but I understand why you picked the one you picked, but if you ask me to boil the rules of combat down to one phrase, that's asking me to change all the intricacies of Okinawan kata and boil it down to Japanese kata.
No, I didn't mean the rules of combat. What I meant is like is it ethos of a dojo?
The ethos.
Not ethos, yeah.
Ethos, yeah. Well, it's just never give in. It's just that simple. Never give in. I mean, why would you want to practice something you know is the most dangerous thing you could ever do? Giving in. No. You can look like you're giving in. You can be deceptive, because that's a tactic. Fine, but no, never give in. Some days you think, oh shit, I can't do this. Well, sit, have a cup of tea, get up. No, now I don't have to give in. Do it again. Just never give in. I can't think of anything more appropriate to any martial art, to be honest. I mean, if you look at even Miyamoto Musashi and all the famous real combative people in the history of Japan, were always of the mind that no mind, mushin, was what was necessary. No thought. And if you're thinking of combat or training, then that's, as long as you understand it, doesn't mean you stop thinking about everything, but means that you get to a point where what you do is right and it doesn't need thinking about. It's the state of not having to. Because here's another thing: under stress, under real combat situations, when a cop's been attacked by 2 or 3 thugs on the street, that cop's brain cannot choose between linear choices. It can't say A or B or C or D. It's not, the brain doesn't work that way under stress. The brain works, where's my finger? Straight down. If this, then that. And under stress, that's all you can do. You can't decide. In the middle of a fight, you can't decide. It's like, I'm sure you've had this when you've done something. People say, what have you done? What did you do? And you say, I don't know, just did it. Because you know it so well. Your instincts, your reactions are built into you. They're honed. It's no mind. Mushin, you don't emptiness. You just are. I used to say to people, you are the technique. You don't strike with a punch. You are the punch. And what that comes from. If you don't do that, if you don't train to a state where Mushin is there, this mental switch in the brain, so much, then ding, you're off. If you don't train that once you're off, you don't have to think, you're not getting it. And it's very important, but few people really think about it. I think it's down to senseis to decide what's important to teach their students, but it's nice to have them discover for themselves what's happening, and you can just help them. But there is so much that I could talk about, but there's just not world enough and time, as Shakespeare also had it. And will I last long enough to teach everything I know? No. Which is good that I've got someone like Guy with me that knows me better than I know me, really. And I look forward to another 80 years, well, because I'm an idiot. But anyway, is there anything else you'd like to drag out of me?
Yes, you mentioned that you're recovering from your hip operation and your goal now is to strengthen the mobility and so on. But what is your plan for future for Kissaki-Kai?
Well, difficult to say really without sounding too proud, but I'm very proud of what we've achieved so far, because I think most people understand that once they come and train with us, it's hard to go back. But of course, if your senseis are dyed in the wool, Shotokan or Wado teacher or Kyokushinkai teacher. I mean, here's the thing. You've probably heard of, well, you all know all about Kyokushinkai, and you've heard of Ashihara, who was his sensei's champion student. He left it and started his own style called Ashihara's Fighting Karate. As he says blatantly, I didn't understand what the kata was for. So what did he do? He made up his own kata. And it's built on boxing. Well, fine, but where's all the knowledge? Everything that was in those original katas, how's that there to help any student now? It's not. So I'm not arrogant enough to think that I'm going to build new kata or I'm going to conquer. I'm too old to conquer the world. That'll have to come next week. But I just think my ambition for Kissaki-Kai is for more people to simply look at what we do. That's all. That's all. And my students, of course, they just loving it. We have private training groups here. They come from all over, and they love what they do. And the thing that is so different about it is the effectiveness of it is not in debate, because you can see what happens when it's done correctly. Now, to me, that's a lot more realistic than standing so far apart you could drive a bus between you and then always attacking a la Shotokan, long zenkuchi stances, oizukis, and blah, and then standing there with one hand out while the sensei sometimes even grips onto it. And well, that's it's not right, is it? I mean, surely the students think, yeah, don't see that often down the bars I go to. But you never know. Could be lucky. But why don't people use the brains they've got and say, like I did and like others did way back? Yeah, it's all very good since we've done all that now. But what are you going? Here's my point. As I said to you before, I was lucky enough to be a member of Asano's A team for a few years. And eventually we only ended up with 4 of us in the 5-man team, and then came the event. We'd co-opt anyone to stand on the end. But my point is, that was fine then. Add another 4 or 5 years to that. Why am I not still in that team? So you're so far into your sports karate training, and you're so reveling in the glory of being in the A team, and I've got big trophies and whatever. But what do you do when you cannot beat the 15-year-old wunderkind that's just rolled into your dojo off the street and can kick your head off? What are you going to do? You get older. You can't do it anymore. Now, this is the problem. What are you going to do when you can't do it anymore? Well, a lot of people leave. And that's why most dojos are not full of geriatrics like me, because they buggered off to the couch and the cup of tea in a corner with a biscuit. But house bells, most of my best students now, they're well into their 40s and 50s. It never used to be like that. My best students were in their 20s and 30s. So our karate's changed, but they're still in the dojo. They're still in the group of friends. They're still benefiting massively from their training. So that's what I want Kissaki to continue to do, to show people that what you could do when you're 20 and 30 might not be the same as when you're 40 and 50, but there's room in the dojo for you. And here's the point, you can be just as effective, but using different techniques.
Very wise, yeah.
Okay. I think that's about it. I think I'm about talked out. It must be lunchtime. I've got to go for a lie down now. I mean, I did my training session and I've not been comatose on the couch yet. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. And I'm looking forward, maybe you'll be in UK to actually meet you and train with you.
Oh, I hope so. I hope next year to come back to the UK. I mean, it's not been possible before because getting my health and strength, I wouldn't go and do a bad seminar. I mean, but now I've done a few in Germany and in Belgium and that, and I know I can do it. So I would look forward to meeting you, and you'll have to let me know where this interview is going to go out. And
it's going to be not this Friday, but next Friday.
Yeah, but
I will send you a link.
Send me the links and things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm pleased to have met you in person. And truthfully, Don said, no, he's no good. But I think he was wrong.
I know, because when I met the Don, and he doesn't like when I say the story. We've been training together as a partners with Naihanchi, and we got a bit excited about it, and he done an uppercut straight to my big nose. So I spent the rest of the seminar with the paper in my nose. So brutal.
But that's a mark of acceptance. You're obviously listen, it's nice to meet you. Pass my respects on to your students too. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future. Okay, bye-bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well done for listening to all of it. You are a superhero. Thank you very much for your support. And if you could leave us that review on a podcast platform, that would be amazing. I appreciate your time, appreciate your support, and I wish you all the best until the next one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.